What's going on, everyone? I'm going to talk about some of the best Iems you can get under $100. So yeah, here we have the Uriah. I just call it Uriah because it's easier. So yeah, Uriah, ER2SE, Olina, and the Dunu Titan S. So first, let's talk about the bass for all of these. So let's start off with the Dunu Titan S. So the bass goes low. It has a good punch, but it won't reach the lowest sub-bass notes. And then the mid-bass is non-existent on all of these pairs, so that's why I like that. There's no bleed into the mid-range. So that's the Dunu Titan S. It has a drier sound. The Dunu Titan S, I would say, has a slightly drier sound. So basically, the bass won't be the best for like natural decay, but it still has a good punch. It's slightly bright leaning, so some vocals, if you listen to well mastered tracks that have a really good vocal, for some reason this one has a slightly shoutier sound. So if you don't like that, that is one thing to note. And yeah, I was testing all of these out with instruments and other things also. So the Titan S, it separates the bass really well from the instruments. I never found that the bass got in the way. The clarity was great in the mid-range. Instrument sounded nice and lively. Slightly forward, but not bad at all. Really good. And the treble, I would say, on the Dunu Titan S is definitely refined and airy. Not the most refined, but for the price, it's very acceptable. I didn't have too many issues with that. So yeah, that's what I thought about the bass, mids, and treble. Now the Olina, I would say the bass has a nice punch to it. It's not as dry as the Dunu Titan S. So I thought the bass of the Olina was slightly warmer leaning. So yeah, that's what I thought about the bass. The sub bass goes all the way low. So on tracks that do have a lot of bass, this performs exceptionally well. It hits the lowest notes, and it doesn't have that many issues with the bass. And then the mid-range, I would say, the Olina is clean, slightly forward. And compared to the Dunu Titan S, it has a less forward vocal. So if you don't like forward sounding Iems, then that is one thing to note. Some people did say they thought the Olina was harsh, but I never really got that issue. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, that's the mids. Let's talk about the treble now. So the treble on the Olina is very airy. It's clean. It extends all the way. You get all the air frequencies. So the Olina and Dunu Titan S do a really good job for the price with the treble. It's articulated the right amount. I didn't have any issues. So yeah, that's the treble. Now let's talk about the ER2SE. So the ER2SE, the bass goes low, but when you have very complicated tracks that have like kick drums and those type of things, the bass is kind of gets distorted. So yeah, that's the bass. Not bad. It goes low, but it is lacking the lowest registers compared to the Olina. So yeah, not bad at all. This has like a flat sound in the bass and the mid-range. Instruments sound really good, not overemphasized, clean, airy. So yeah, that's what I thought about the mid-range. And now let's talk about the treble. So I was listening to some songs that have extreme treble air, and for some reason on the ER2SE it kind of sounded distorted in the highest octaves of the treble. And I didn't have that issue with the Olina or the Dunu Titan S. But if you do listen to certain songs that have like a sharper treble sound, this doesn't sound as convincing from what I noticed. So yeah, that's the ER2 SE. Now let's talk about the Moondrop Araya. So the bass is decent on these. It hits the lowest notes. It's slightly boomy compared to these three. Not bad at all though. Hits the lowest bass notes. There's no mid bass on this IEM either. So for the texture on the Araya, I would say it's a little more drier leaning compared to the Titan S. So the Araya and Dunu Titan S have like a drier sound where the bass isn't textured perfectly compared to the Olina. So yeah, that's the bass. Not bad. For the price, I would say it's decent because you do have to remember the Araya is the cheapest IEM out of all of these. So that is one thing to note. So yeah, not bad at all. Let's talk about the mid-range. So the mid-range on the Araya has a slightly raw and grainy texture. And this could sound slightly unnatural compared to some of these other pairs. But it's not bad. Like, it's acceptable for the price. For me, honestly, I didn't like the Araya because of the grainy sound. Like it sounds like it has a mid-range boost or a treble boost. And normally, I don't see those things about a product. But yeah, it does have that. Not bad. I'm just being picky. So yeah, those are the general things. So in terms of how well instruments sound, like a flute, piano, violin, I think the Olina does a really good job, and the Dunu Titan S does a really good job. The Araya could sound slightly bright at times, or lacks that refinement in the texture of the sound, where these two don't have that. And these are new IEMs, so it makes sense. I mean, this is pretty old IEM. And then the ER2 SE, when you listen to those same instruments, it could kind of, like, I was listening to a trumpet, and the ER2 SE slightly sounded muffled, like not realistic. And the Araya, it sounded really good, but it lacked refinement. So the Olina, I was listening to the same type of instruments. It sounded very airy, slightly forward. So yeah, not bad at all. Really good. And then the Dunu Titan S slightly emphasizes clarity for those instruments. So yeah, that's what I thought about that. Instruments. So songs that have a lot of bass, the Araya and the Dunu Titan S, I thought they were slightly lacking compared to the Olina, where it has like that kick drum punch in those certain types of songs. I thought the Olina portrayed it more accurately compared to some of the more expensive pairs I have. So yeah, that's what I thought. And then the ER2 SE, it does a really good job, but it won't sound as realistic when you listen to a kick drum or those type of things. So yeah, not bad. So yeah, that's that. So let's talk about Soundstage and Imaging. So the Dunu Titan S, I'd say, does a really, really good job for Soundstage and Imaging. For the price, not bad at all. It separates the sound exceptionally well. So yeah, that's what I thought about Soundstage and Imaging. I'd say it sounds about right for the price. It's not lacking in terms of Soundstage and Imaging. I'm not going to talk too much about Imaging because a lot of these are similar because they're around the same price range. So yeah, the Imaging, really good. Soundstage, wide. Sometimes it does have an out of your head feeling. So for the price for it to do that, I'll give it some credit because that's pretty good. And then the Olina, the Soundstage and Imaging is excellent. Soundstage is nice and wide. Imaging, you hear the layers of the music very well for a dynamic driver. So yeah, not bad at all. Really, really good. This has the best Soundstage and Imaging out of probably all of these pairs. But yeah, it's really that good. Basically, it paints a picture in a way because no frequency is overly emphasized, so everything's free-flowing wherever it needs to be. Where on the Uriah, that slight bit of grain, that slight bit of harshness in the mid-range and lower treble really gets in the way. So, yeah, that's what I thought. And let's talk about the ER2 SE now. So the imaging on this Iems is pretty decent for the price, not bad. The soundstage and imaging, I'd say, are okay. Nothing like spectacular, but really good. And then the Uriah does a decent job too of placing the sounds. I'd say it's on par. Or no, actually, I think the ER2 SE is slightly better than the Uriah. It just sounds more natural in the tonal aspects of it. So yeah, that's what I thought. So overall, I would say the Uriah has a good bass, not the best sub bass. And then the mid-range is good, but on busy tracks, it can get slightly grainy. And the treble could have like artifact to it that's not actually a part of the music. That's what I noticed for that. And then the ER2 SE, this is like a flat sound. So if you don't want a bass boosted Iem, you'd get this. And the mid-range is exceptional on this. It does well with a lot of guitars, pianos, flutes. Not the perfect, but it does a decent job. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it does a decent job. The Olina, I would say, is the most refined out of all of these pairs. It does a really, really good job. It separates the sound exceptionally well. And I haven't heard an IM that does all those things for around $100. I just wanted to point that out. And then the Dunu Titan S has a slightly forward sound. It could come off as shouty to some people. It has like a livelier sound. A lot of energy. Clean, clear. So if I had to pick out of all four of these, I would go with the Dunu Titan S or the Olina. If you only had to buy one. So yeah, I wouldn't get the Uriah because it's good, but now it has a lot of competition for the price. So I'm not sure. Maybe if you can get the Uriah for $40 or $50, it's a good deal. But other than that, this IM costs about $80 or $70, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think it does a much better job than the Uriah. So yeah, that's that. And then the Olina, again, if you want the best sound, I still think it's the most refined, where the Uriah could come off as slightly harsh and grainy, and the Dunu Titan S could be slightly too forward. But the Olina didn't have that issue. So on sharp S sounds, the Olina won't be as sharp as maybe the Titan S or the Uriah. It sounds like it's more toned down and refined. So basically, this has the most refined sound. This has a flat sound. This has a bass boosted sound with slightly airy, dry sound. So yeah, I do wish it was slightly more refined. And then the Titan S, really good IM. It doesn't do that many things wrong. So yeah, if I had to pick, I'd basically get the Olina or the Dunu Titan S. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. And yeah, have a good one.